Hello again, humans! It is I, Jim the Ape, and it's been a while since I made a new video, and there are a couple reasons for that. Mainly, there has been some drama going on that I'd really rather not get into, but suffice it to say, it's taken up a lot of my free time away from my job, thus making it harder to make videos. But also, I've been dealing with a sore throat and nasal congestion that can't seem to decide whether it wants to make my nose runny or block off my ability to breathe through my nose. The point is, I'm back, and I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind quite a bit as of late. Now, since I'm an atheist who often criticizes feminism and social justice ideas, I'm sure that many of you who watch my content regularly would consider me part of the skeptic community. And while I generally try to avoid certain labels and group associations if I feel they may lump me in unfairly with some crazy and/or stupid people, I have less of a problem with being part of a community than being part of an ideology or collective. But it's really the other word in that term that I want to focus on in this video. So, what is a skeptic? Well, skepticism is basically the idea that you don't just buy into something just because someone tells you it's the truth. Instead, you look at things as objectively as possible and look for concrete evidence of a claim before accepting it. Or you wait for the person making the claim to present said proof to you. But the problem is, you can't literally be skeptical of everything at all times because, for one thing, it's not practical, and for another, that would mean you would also be skeptical of skepticism, which creates a paradox. So, while I completely understand and agree with the virtues of skepticism, there are some things where it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know, but this is what I believe. Also, there are many different ways to go about skepticism. There's the solipsistic, everything is a lie type of skepticism, where you don't even trust what can be measured and tested, because that could all be just a trick of the senses. There's also skepticism based on the degree to which the claim is believable, as is summarized by the oft-repeated Carl Sagan quote, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." That kind of skeptic won't demand evidence for what you had for breakfast this morning, but probably would if you claimed that a god exists or that doomsday is coming. And then there's the kind of skepticism that is based on how the justice system is at least supposed to work. Basically, this means that a person is innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that the prosecution has the burden of proof. That standard can also be applied to those making positive claims about things like the existence of a god, in which case I would say that he, she, or it, being the god, is innocent of existing until proven guilty. Not that existing is a crime, it's just that that's how the courtroom metaphor fits in with a broader concept. Mind you, these are just a few examples off the top of my head, and these kinds of skepticism are not necessarily mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, some of them go hand in hand. My reason for bringing this all up is that lately, skepticism and its related word forms have been used as buzzwords by people who consider themselves to be high-minded intellectuals who think that they can't be wrong about anything and that their shit doesn't stink. I am under no such impression about myself, by the way. I'm just some random asshole on the internet who didn't finish college and spends most of his free time playing video games, watching YouTube videos, and jerking off to porn. Yeah, a highbrow academic I am not. But even a fat neckbeard such as myself knows when someone who claims to be a skeptic is blatantly accepting something at face value and not looking into the evidence objectively. And that's the problem. See, skepticism is such a broad concept that people who claim to be skeptics land on both sides of just about any issue. So you get people who fancy themselves skeptics suddenly finding things they disagree on, and before you know it, they're throwing around the no true skeptic fallacy like confetti at a ticker tape parade. Now, this is on top of the fact that simply calling yourself a skeptic or extolling the virtues of skepticism doesn't automatically mean that every opinion that spews from your pie hole is objectively researched scientific fact. So when you add all of that together, the invocation of the word skeptic and all the branching words that extend from that root doesn't really mean anything anymore. In addition to all the pitfalls with the various interpretations of skepticism, there is also the problem of differing ideas about what counts as evidence. Some people will accept physical, tangible proof only, while others allow their biases to cloud their judgment to the point of just pointing at something and going, "Look at that! Isn't that exactly what my preconceived conclusion needs it to be?" And then accepting that as proof. Another problem with self-proclaimed skeptics is that they often fail to consider the biases of the source of their evidence. Instead of looking for the most objective sources to cite, they'll just link you to a study or an article that agrees with their position without looking into who did the study, how the study was done, or who wrote the article. So in other words, they're only skeptics when it suits them. But this kind of shoddy, half-assed skepticism gets even worse when you combine it with the mob mentality, which could be an entirely separate video unto itself. Suffice it to say that people, especially on the internet, love to find people to hate and to attack. People want to feel like they're the heroes of their own epic story, and to do that, you need a villain. Some people pick broader concepts like religion or feminism as their villain, but others go for a much more personal route and target specific people. Now this ties in with what I was talking about in my last video about the importance of humanizing political opponents, but it goes even beyond that. I've seen people targeted by angry, self-righteous crusaders who try to dox, harass, and otherwise ruin the lives of someone they just decided they didn't like for whatever reason. And the ugliest part is, some go so far as to threaten violence against them. Now, this could be attributed to what is often called call-out culture or exposed culture, wherein basically person A accuses person B of doing something horrible, and then whoever listens to and believes person A goes and harasses person B until they get tired of it or until some vindicating evidence comes to light. Those of you who are familiar with Keemstar and his history of making false pedophile accusations will understand what I'm talking about here. The fact of the matter is, if someone really is doing something illegal, that's a matter for the proper authorities to investigate as objectively as possible, because that's literally their job. It's not a matter for an angry mob of people on the internet to try and solve with vigilante justice. Because, and brace yourselves now because I'm about to hit you with a crazy idea out of left field, what if they got it wrong? Yes, everything on the internet is not always as it seems. In reality, things are not so black and white, and what may at first appear to be a sign of malfeasance may in fact have a perfectly reasonable alternate explanation. Let us not forget that evidence can be cherry-picked to suit a biased narrative, and like I said before, some people have the bias of, I don't like this person, so I'm gonna do whatever it takes to destroy them! Not to mention that some evidence can easily be dubiously altered, or even fabricated outright, also as a means to support said biased narrative. And when people point to past examples of wrongdoing as evidence of a completely different person's alleged current wrongdoing of the same kind, I have to point out that that doesn't prove anything. Just because some people pretend to be disabled, like that Twitch streamer that got caught a while back, doesn't mean that actual disabled people suddenly don't exist. So where does that leave us? Well, I'd say that skepticism has recently been so broadly defined and so frequently paid lip service to that it basically doesn't mean anything anymore. Oh, so you think you're a skeptic and anyone who disagrees with you about anything isn't a skeptic? Cool story, bro. So does everyone on the internet, apparently. With that in mind, I would say the label is meaningless, and that you should aspire more to be rational and reasonable people who use logic as well as empathy. For example, if someone makes a claim that they were raped, you can be sympathetic to them without accepting their story as automatically 100% true, and you also don't have to go physically assault the alleged rapist, since it is a possibility that they might be innocent. We all have biases, including me, because sometimes I can be biased as fuck, but that doesn't mean you always have to take a side. I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to say about this topic. The bottom line is, don't focus so much on being a skeptic since it's meaningless, and don't assume the worst in people just because someone dug for dirt on them and exposed them with some sensationalized bullshit. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. If you didn't, go ahead and give it a thumbs down with all that impotent internet rage of yours. See if I give even one fuck. You can also leave your negative comments below talking about how I'm a pimple on the ass of skepticism for making this video, or you can even make an exposed hit piece on me if you really hate me that much. If you really like my content, support me on Patreon. Anyway, this video went on way longer than I wanted it to. I've just been so stressed out and frustrated with all the drama I've been dealing with, and I just had to vent a little bit. I hope you are all doing well, even those of you who hate my guts. As always, thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Stay great, apes.